I never thought I'd bleed inside my own house. But there I was, standing in my living room, with blood dripping down my lip, and my wife's brother, Ethan, still holding his fist high like he owned the place. The man didn't stop there. He spat on the carpet, looked me in the eye, and said the words that made my blood run cold. "Give me your car keys." Imagine that. In my own home. My wife's family standing on his side. And me, the fool who let it all happen. My name is Marcus Hale. I'm 54 years old, and I worked 30 years at a steel plant outside Pittsburgh. I was the kind of man who kept his head down, clocked in, clocked out, paid every bill on time, and thought loyalty meant something. I married my high school sweetheart, Denise, when we were both 22. We built a life together, bought a modest home, raised 2 kids, and even managed to keep our marriage together through layoffs, sickness, and late-night fights. But that night, when Ethan swung at me, something broke forever. You may be wondering, what could lead a grown man to hit his sister's husband? Was I cruel? Did I betray my wife? No. The truth was worse. It was silent betrayal. For years, Denise's family never respected me. They thought I wasn't good enough, that I didn't make enough, that I wasn't ambitious. Ethan especially, the golden son, the one who never worked a steady job yet always strutted around like the world owed him something. I ignored his insults for years. But I never thought he'd go this far. It happened on a Sunday evening. The smell of roast chicken was still hanging in the air. Denise had invited her family over, her parents, her sister, and of course Ethan. I didn't want them there, but I stayed quiet, like always. They laughed loud, drank beer, and made little jabs at me. I kept swallowing it down. But when I told Ethan to put his feet off my coffee table, he stood up, puffed his chest, and before I could blink, his fist was in my face. The sound of my wife gasping is still burned into my memory. She didn't rush to me. She didn't defend me. She didn't scream at her brother to stop. She just stood there, frozen, while her brother shouted, "Hand me the keys, old man. I know you got that new truck outside." It wasn't just a punch anymore. It was robbery. And worse, it was humiliation. My wife's silence told me everything. She wasn't shocked at his demand. She was expecting me to give in. I looked at her, searching for any sign of loyalty. But her eyes were down, her hands folded like she was praying I wouldn't make things worse. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't Ethan's first demand. This wasn't the first time he had used her. And maybe, it wasn't the first time she had chosen him over me. My heart raced, my lips stung, and I suddenly knew I wasn't just fighting Ethan. I was fighting the truth of my marriage. And yet, I didn't give him the keys. I wiped the blood from my mouth, stood tall, and whispered, "No," his face twisted with rage. Denise's mother started yelling, her father pointed a shaking finger at me, and Ethan cracked his knuckles like he was ready to swing again. My chest tightened. I was outnumbered. Alone. Betrayed inside my own house. And still, I refused. Because in that moment, I made a decision. A secret decision I didn't dare say out loud. You see, that punch wasn't just an attack. It was a gift. Because it woke me up. For years, I had been blind. I worked like a dog for people who didn't respect me. I gave loyalty to a woman who gave me silence. I built a home that turned into a stage for my humiliation. But when Ethan's fist hit my mouth, it knocked the truth loose. It told me I had nothing left to lose, and that meant I had the power to do what came next. But here's the twist I didn't see coming. Later that night, after they all left, Denise came into the bedroom. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't bring me ice. Instead, she whispered something that froze my blood colder than Ethan's punch. She said, "Marcus, maybe you should just give him the truck. He needs it more than you." That's when I knew my marriage wasn't broken, it was gone. And the rage inside me grew into something darker. Something sharper. I'll tell you this, what I did next wasn't out of weakness. It wasn't out of fear. It was revenge. And it's not the kind of revenge you see in movies where the hero throws punches and wins the fight. No. My revenge was slower. Smarter. The kind that breaks a man from the inside out. The kind that makes him beg for mercy when it's too late. And if you keep watching, I'll show you exactly how I made Ethan pay for that punch, and how Denise learned the price of betrayal. But before we go deeper, I need to ask you something. If you were me, standing in that living room, bleeding, humiliated, betrayed, what would you have done? Comment below where you're watching from, because I want to know if anyone out there would have stayed quiet, or if you would have burned the whole house down like I wanted to. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next chapter is where the real revenge begins. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Before Ethan's punch, before the blood on my lip, I lived like a blind man in my own home. I thought love meant sacrifice. I thought marriage meant endurance. I worked double shifts at the steel plant, nights where my back felt broken, hands torn open by metal, lungs filled with smoke. But I smiled through it because I believed I was building a future. Do you know that feeling? Working so hard that your body gives out, but your heart says, it's worth it for them? Denise used to meet me at the door with a kiss. Back then, her eyes sparkled like the girl I married. We had dreams, 2 kids, a small house, maybe a little cabin by the lake when we retired. I gave up fishing trips, weekends with the boys, even vacations, just to save more for her and the kids. But slowly, her smile faded. She started spending more weekends at her parents' house. And every time she came back, she carried Ethan's stories with her, like they mattered more than mine. Ethan was younger than us, almost 10 years younger. He was the golden child. Denise's parents spoiled him, covered his mistakes, called him brilliant, even when he was unemployed. He always had excuses. The job market is tough. I'll start something soon. Meanwhile, I was breaking my body at the plant. And yet, when Denise's family gathered, I was invisible. They would pat Ethan on the back, pour him another drink, laugh at his ideas. But me, I was just the tired husband who never quite fit in. Do you know what it feels like to sit at a dinner table and be treated like furniture? To open your mouth, only for the conversation to flow right past you? That was my life. At first, I shrugged it off. I told myself, it doesn't matter, as long as Denise loves me. But deep down, it did matter. Respect matters. And every time Ethan bragged about a new scheme while Denise listened with shining eyes, I felt smaller. Like maybe I wasn't the man she wanted anymore. Here's the cruel part. Every time Ethan failed, Denise defended him. When he crashed his car, she said, he just needs help. When he quit another job, she said, he'll find his path. And when he borrowed money that we never saw again, she whispered, he's family. But when I was too tired to talk after a 12-hour shift, she said, Marcus, you've changed. Do you see the difference? My mistakes were failures. Ethan's failures were forgiven. That cut deeper than any punch. One memory burns in my mind. It was Christmas 3 years ago. I had saved all year to buy Denise a gold bracelet she once admired. When she opened it, she smiled politely, then turned to Ethan, who had walked in late, carrying nothing but his charm. He kissed her cheek, made her laugh, and suddenly my gift felt like nothing. That night, lying in bed, I asked her, "Are you happy?" She said, "Of course." But her voice carried a weight I didn't dare question. Should I have? What would you do if your wife always defended her brother over you? If every sacrifice you made was invisible, while his laziness was excused? Would you swallow it down to keep the peace, or would you demand answers? Comment below, because I want to know if I was too weak or too patient. Maybe you've lived something like this too. Maybe you've felt invisible in your own home. If so, you understand why that punch wasn't just about violence. It was about years of buried disrespect exploding. But here's the truth I never told anyone. Deep down, I feared losing her. I feared that if I spoke up too loud, if I told Ethan to stay away, Denise would choose him. And maybe I was right. Maybe she already had, in her heart. So I stayed quiet. I worked harder. I gave more. I believed that one day she would see me again, not as the man who came home tired, but as the man who built her life. But that day never came. Instead, Ethan's fists came. Now, let me ask you, have you ever stayed quiet too long? Have you ever ignored the little betrayals because you were afraid of the bigger one? That was me. And silence has a price. Because silence invites more disrespect. My silence gave Ethan power. My silence told Denise it was safe to abandon me without saying the words. And when Ethan punched me in that living room, it wasn't the start of betrayal, it was the end result of years I had let slip away. But the story doesn't stop there. Because after the punch, after the blood, after the demand for my keys, something changed inside me. I wasn't Marcus, the loyal husband, anymore. I wasn't the quiet man at the dinner table. I wasn't the invisible provider. I was something else, something darker. And that night, while Denise defended Ethan one last time, I made a decision. Not to leave. Not to forgive. But to destroy them both. Oh. That's the part you'll see in a few seconds. That night, after Ethan's punch and Denise's cold words, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while she turned her back on me. My lip was swollen, my pride was broken, but my mind was sharper than ever. Something inside me whispered, "Don't fight him with fists. Fight him with patience." That was the beginning of my revenge. Not a loud storm, not a screaming match. No. My revenge would be quiet, slow. The kind of revenge they wouldn't see coming until it was too late. The next morning, I acted normal. I cooked breakfast like always, packed my lunch, kissed Denise's cheek. She didn't even look at me. She scrolled her phone, probably waiting for a text from Ethan. But I smiled, because that was my mask. Do you know what it feels like to hide fire behind your teeth? To pretend you're calm while your heart is planning war? That's what I did. Because sometimes, the most dangerous man is the one who looks defeated but is quietly sharpening his blade. I started small. I began studying Ethan. Watching him. I asked little questions at dinner, pretending to care. "So, Ethan, what's your new plan?" He'd brag about schemes that never worked, flipping cars, selling cheap electronics, talking about business partners who never showed up. I nodded, acted supportive, even bought him a beer once. Denise smiled at me for that, thinking I was finally accepting her brother. But inside, I was taking notes. Every lie, every weakness, every hole in his story became a weapon I stored for later. Here's what I learned. Ethan was drowning in debt. Credit cards maxed out. Payday loans unpaid. He had no savings, no real job, and the only reason he hadn't collapsed yet was because Denise and her parents kept bailing him out. I also learned he had one obsession: fast cars. He borrowed mine, begged for rides, and bragged to his friends that he'd own one soon. That's why he demanded my truck. He wasn't just trying to humiliate me. He wanted to fuel his image. And that gave me leverage. I also studied Denise. For years, I thought she was simply blind to her brother's flaws. But now, I saw the truth. She needed him. Every time she defended him, every time she chose him over me, it wasn't just love, it was dependence. She couldn't imagine life without her golden brother. That was my key. I didn't need to separate them with fights. I needed to make her watch him crumble with her own eyes. Do you see what I'm saying? Sometimes the best revenge is letting people destroy themselves. But I had to play it carefully. One wrong move, and they'd suspect me. So I started planting seeds. I whispered small lies into conversations, tiny sparks that looked like casual remarks. When Ethan bragged about his new business deal, I'd smile and say, "Hope it works out, man." But I heard those guys don't always pay back. When Denise worried about bills, I'd mutter, "Strange how money disappears when certain people are around." Not direct. Not loud. Just enough to build doubt. Have you ever done that? Played weak while secretly moving the pieces? The first crack showed 1 week later. Denise's father called, angry that Ethan had borrowed money again. I sat in the corner, sipping my coffee, watching it unfold. Denise defended Ethan like always, but her voice shook. For the first time, she wasn't sure. And Ethan? He avoided eye contact, sweating like a guilty boy. That was when I knew my plan was working. Doubt was spreading. Slowly, silently, like poison in their veins. And I didn't need to lift a finger, only my patience. But patience is dangerous, isn't it? Here's the question I want to ask you. If someone disrespected you in your own home, would you take revenge quietly, or would you explode right away? Which one hurts more, the loud slap of anger or the slow knife of betrayal? Comment below, Because I need to know if I'm the only one who believes that silence can be the loudest weapon. Because, trust me, what I had planned next wasn't simple silence. It was a trap. A trap that Ethan would walk into, smiling, thinking he was winning. But here's the open loop I'll leave hanging tonight. I didn't just want to ruin Ethan. I wanted to break Denise too, not with violence, not with yelling, but with the truth she had ignored for years. And that truth would be her brother's downfall. Imagine her face when she realized the man she defended had dragged her down with him. That's what I craved. That was the fire that kept me awake every night. But how do you destroy a man who already has nothing? That's where the real story begins. Because Ethan's weakness wasn't money. It wasn't even respect. His weakness was greed. And I knew, if I dangled the right bait, he'd bite without thinking. What bait did I use? How did I set the trap that made him fall so hard he couldn't get back up? That's the secret waiting for Chapter 4. Stay with me. Don't miss it. And while you wait, tell me, what would you use to bait a greedy man? Money, love, pride. I know my answer. You'll hear it soon. Ethan's weakness was as clear as daylight: greed. He didn't want to work, didn't want to sweat, didn't want to earn anything honestly. He wanted shortcuts. Fast money. Fast cars. Fast women. And I knew, if I dangled the right bait, he'd take it without a second thought. So I began to build the trap. I didn't need guns or fists. I needed something he couldn't resist, something shiny, dangerous, and just believable enough to pull him in. Have you ever baited someone by feeding their hunger instead of fighting it? My plan started with a story. One night at dinner, I casually mentioned a man at work who was flipping old trucks for big profits. I said, "Guy bought a beat-up Ford, fixed it for cheap, and sold it for 20 grand. Easy money." Ethan's eyes lit up like a firecracker. He leaned forward, grinning, asking question after question. I shrugged, played it cool, acted like it was just something I heard. But inside, I was smiling. The hook was already in his mouth. Now, I only needed to reel him closer. Denise glanced at me suspiciously. Maybe she thought it was strange that I was even sharing something Ethan might like. But she said nothing. That was good. Silence worked in my favor. Ethan, though, couldn't stop talking about it. By the end of the night, he was already dreaming out loud. "Man, I could do that. I know cars better than anyone." He slapped my shoulder like we were partners. "You gotta introduce me to this guy." I nodded slowly, hiding my excitement. The trap was almost ready. For days, Ethan nagged me about it. Texts, calls, showing up at my house uninvited. "When we meeting him, Marcus?" "Huh. Don't leave me hanging." I acted hesitant. That was the trick. I let him chase me. I told him, he doesn't like strangers. He's picky. That only made him want it more. You know how a child wants the toy he can't touch. That was Ethan. The more I pulled back, the more desperate he became. And desperation is a dangerous hunger, don't you think? Finally, I told him the lie he wanted to hear. The guy might have another truck lined up. Says he needs a partner with cash. Ethan's eyes went wide. He asked how much. I said, "Not much. 10 grand maybe." He whistled, acting confident, but I saw panic flicker in his face. He didn't have 10 grand. He never did. But greed doesn't care about reality. Greed makes a man believe he can steal, beg, or borrow his way into gold. And I knew Ethan would do exactly that. That night, Denise pulled me aside. Her voice was low, nervous. "Marcus, don't get him into trouble. He's not like you." I almost laughed in her face. Not like me. That was the point. I wasn't pulling Ethan into trouble. I was showing her the trouble that was already inside him. So I told her softly, "Relax. I'm just helping him get on his feet." She wanted to believe me. I saw it in her eyes. But doubt was creeping in now, whether she admitted it or not. The next week, Ethan came to me, jittery and smiling too wide. "I got it," he whispered. I asked, "Got what?" He pulled out a thick envelope, stuffed with cash. My heart almost stopped, not from fear, but from excitement. He had actually done it. Borrowed. Stolen. Who knows? But he had the money, and that meant he was all in. I stared at that envelope, and for a moment I felt the devil's grin rise inside me. The bait had worked. The fish was on the hook. Now here's where I want to ask you something. If someone who betrayed you handed you the rope to hang them with, would you take it? Or would you forgive them and walk away? Forgiveness is noble, yes. But revenge is unforgettable. And I wasn't done. Because the plan wasn't just about trapping Ethan. It was about letting Denise watch every step. I wanted her to see what her brother really was, so when the final fall came, it would shatter her too. Cruel, maybe. But justice rarely feels gentle. Ethan begged me to set up the meeting. I told him to wait a few days. Let him sweat. Let him dream. Each day, he called, more desperate than the last. By Friday, he was pacing my living room, shouting, "Come on, Marcus. I got the cash. Don't play games with me." I leaned back, calm, almost bored, and said, "Patience, Ethan. Good things come to those who wait." But what he didn't know was this. The good thing waiting for him was the beginning of his ruin. Because the meeting I promised, it was never real. The man he thought he'd meet didn't exist. But what would happen to Ethan once his money disappeared? What would Denise do when she realized her brother had been fooled, and that her blind loyalty had cost them both everything? That was the next chapter. The trap was set, the bait was taken, and now the fall was coming. Stay with me, because very soon, Ethan's world begins to collapse. And trust me, you won't see how deep the fall goes. Ethan handed me that envelope of cash like it was treasure. His hands shook, his voice cracked, but his smile was wide. "Set the meeting, Marcus. This is it. My big break." I looked at him, pretending to hesitate, but inside, I was calm, too calm. Because I already knew there was no meeting, no truck, no profit. Only a trap. A slow trap. And Ethan had walked right into it with his own greedy feet. Do you know that feeling? Watching someone dig their own grave while you hold the shovel? I told him, "All right, Ethan." But the guy moves slow. He hates being rushed. That made Ethan restless. He paced the floor, mumbling about cars, women, respect. Denise sat nearby, twisting her hands nervously. She asked, "Marcus, are you sure this is safe?" I gave her a steady look and said, "Trust me." She tried to smile, but doubt flickered in her eyes. For the first time in years, I saw her question her brother. That was step 1. Break his pride. Step 2. Make her watch him fall. 3 days passed. Ethan called me morning, noon, and night. "When's the deal, Marcus? Don't leave me hanging." I told him, "He'll call me soon." Every delay drove him crazier. His greed grew like fire. He borrowed more money, bragged to his friends, even told Denise's parents he was finally turning his life around. They beamed with pride, thinking their golden boy was about to shine. I said nothing, but deep inside, I laughed. Because what do you think happens when a man builds his pride on quicksand? By the end of the week, Ethan stormed into my house, furious. He threw his hands in the air, shouting, "Where's this guy, Marcus? I gave you 10 grand. Don't play me." I stayed calm, sipping coffee. "Patience," I said. "He's close." Ethan slammed his fist on the table. Denise jumped, tears in her eyes. For once, she didn't defend him. She whispered, "Maybe Marcus is right. Maybe you should wait." Ethan glared at her, his face red with rage. The cracks were showing. Cracks that would soon split wide open. The next day, I took it further. I told Ethan, "The guy wants to meet, but he needs proof you're serious. More money on the table." Ethan froze. His jaw tightened. "More? I already gave you everything." I shrugged. "Then maybe this isn't for you." His pride wouldn't let him walk away. Hours later, he came back with another wad of borrowed cash. He shoved it into my hand. That was the moment I knew I had him. He would bleed himself dry chasing a dream that didn't exist. Denise was pale. She pulled me aside that night. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Marcus, this doesn't feel right. What if Ethan's making a mistake? I looked at her, calm and steady. Sometimes people need to face their own mistakes, Denise. She swallowed hard, and for the first time, she didn't argue. Do you see the shift? The loyalty that once blinded her was starting to fade. Have you ever seen someone realize the person they trusted most was sinking, and there was nothing they could do? But Ethan was blind. The more he gave, the more desperate he became. He called me his partner, slapped my back, even promised to cut me in on the profits. He believed we were brothers now. That's the cruel beauty of greed. It makes fools think they're winning when they're already lost. And every night, when Denise looked at him with worry and then looked at me with silence, I felt something dark but satisfying. She was finally seeing the truth. Slowly, painfully, and I wanted her to keep watching. One night, Ethan burst in again, sweat dripping down his face. Marcus, I need an update. I told people already. They're waiting. Don't embarrass me. He was shaking, desperate, almost begging. I leaned forward, locked eyes with him, and whispered, "You'll get what you deserve soon." He grinned, thinking it was a promise. But Denise froze. She caught the cold edge in my voice. Did she realize then? Did she suspect what I was doing? I don't know. But I do know this. She couldn't stop what was already in motion. And here's my question for you. If you saw your enemy destroying himself, would you step in and stop it? Or would you let him sink deeper, knowing it was his own choices pulling him under? Comment below, because I wonder, do you think I was cruel, or do you think I was finally giving Ethan what he asked for all his life? Because soon, very soon, his pride and greed would eat him alive. And Denise, she would have no one left to defend. But this was just the beginning. The money was gone. Ethan was in too deep. His lies were catching up. His debts were circling him like wolves. And I hadn't even made my final move yet. Because my revenge wasn't complete until Denise saw her brother's empire of lies crumble into dust, and realized she chose him over me. That moment was coming. And when it did, nothing in her world would ever be the same. Stay with me, because the darkest part hasn't even begun. It started on a rainy Tuesday. Ethan's car pulled up fast, brakes screeching outside my house. He stumbled in, drenched and wild-eyed. "Marcus," he gasped, "they're after me." I stayed calm, like a stone in the storm. "Who?" I asked. His eyes darted around. "The men I borrowed from. They want their money back, all of it. And I don't have it." Denise went pale, clutching her sweater. I leaned back, silent, watching the fear spread. Isn't it strange how quickly a man's pride disappears when real danger comes knocking? Denise whispered, "Ethan, what have you done?" But Ethan didn't answer. His hands shook, his voice cracked. "Marcus, please. Talk to them for me. You know people. You can fix this." I almost laughed. He thought I was his savior, when in truth, I was the shadow pulling the strings. But I put on a calm face and said, "Maybe. But debts don't vanish, Ethan. They grow. And these men, they don't forgive." Denise gasped softly. The silence in the room was louder than thunder. What would you have done in my place? That night, the first warning came. A brick through Ethan's window, wrapped in a note. Denise read it out loud, her voice trembling, "Pay up or pay in blood." Her hands shook so badly she dropped the paper. Ethan tried to act tough, shouting about how he'd handle it, but his eyes betrayed him, filled with fear. I stayed silent, sipping my drink, watching Denise crumble. The brother she had worshipped was unraveling before her eyes. And I wondered, how many bricks would it take before she truly broke? 2 days later, they cornered Ethan in the street. He came home bruised, lips split, pride shattered. Denise screamed when she saw him, rushing to clean his wounds. He pushed her away, embarrassed. "I'll fix it," he muttered, though his voice shook. I stepped closer, my tone steady. "How? With what? You've got nothing left, Ethan." He glared at me, but said nothing. That silence was sweeter than any victory. Do you know the taste of watching a man choke on the lies he once fed everyone around him? The debts grew heavier. Ethan begged Denise for help, asking her to sell jewelry, borrow from friends, even dip into her savings. She shook her head, tears running down her cheeks. "I can't, Ethan. I won't." For the first time, she stood against him. He cursed, slammed doors, stormed out into the night. I watched her, broken, shaking, whispering, "Why is this happening?" I didn't answer. Not yet. Because the answer would destroy her. But tell me, would you have told her the truth then, or let her bleed slowly with doubt? One evening, the collectors came to my house. 3 men, cold eyes, heavy steps. They didn't speak much, just handed me a warning. "Tell your friend his time's almost up." I nodded calmly. Denise stood behind me, pale as paper, her fingers gripping my arm. For the first time, she leaned on me, not Ethan. And in that moment, I felt the shift. Her faith was moving. Her heart was beginning to see who truly stood steady. Have you ever felt someone's loyalty slide from another's hands into yours? Ethan grew desperate. He tried to gamble, thinking a quick win would save him. Instead, he lost more. He borrowed again, promises stacked on top of lies. Denise couldn't even look at him anymore. "You're destroying everything," she said through tears. He shouted back, voice cracking, "I did it for us." But no one believed him. Not her. Not me. Not even himself. That's the cruelty of desperation. It eats a man alive until he's nothing but a shell. Do you think greed can ever truly be satisfied, or does it always ask for more? One night, Ethan collapsed in my living room, drunk and broken. He mumbled about running away, leaving it all behind. Denise stared at him, her face full of something I'd never seen before, disgust. She whispered to me, "This isn't my brother. I don't know who he is anymore." I wanted to say, "This is who he's always been. You just refuse to see it." But I stayed silent, letting her drown in her own realization. Because sometimes silence speaks louder than any truth. Would you have told her, or stayed quiet like me? But here's the twist. Denise's disgust didn't kill her love for him. Not yet. She still defended him when others mocked. Still begged me to help, even as her eyes dimmed. That loyalty was stubborn, and I knew breaking it would take more. So I waited, patient as a hunter. I let Ethan sink deeper, let the wolves close in, let Denise keep holding onto a rope that was already frayed. Because when it finally snapped, the pain would be sharp, unforgettable. And that was the pain I wanted her to feel. The final warning came at midnight. A phone call. A voice cold as ice. "Tell Ethan this is his last chance. Tomorrow, we collect." I hung up, turned to Denise, and saw her trembling, eyes wide with terror. She whispered, "Marcus, what will they do to him?" I looked at her, steady as stone, and said, "You'll see." She gasped, covering her mouth. And deep inside, I smiled. Because tomorrow, the curtain would rise, and Denise would finally witness the collapse of her golden brother. But what she didn't know, the worst was still to come. The knock at the door came just after midnight. 3 hard bangs that shook the wood. Denise jumped, her eyes wide. Ethan froze like a child caught stealing. I walked to the door slowly, heart steady. On the porch stood the same men as before, shadows in leather jackets, eyes like knives. "It's time," their leader said. Ethan stumbled forward, stammering, "I just need a little more," but the man's hand shot out, grabbing him by the collar. Isn't it strange how quickly words die when real violence enters the room? Denise screamed, "Stop, please." She grabbed Ethan's arm, begging them not to hurt him. The men ignored her, dragging him outside. Rain poured, soaking us all. Ethan shouted promises. "I'll pay. I swear." But they laughed, shoving him against their black car. I stood in the doorway, watching, silent. My chest burned, but not with fear. With justice. With patience paying off. I asked myself, should I step in? Should I save him? Or let him feel every ounce of the hell he once poured into me? What would you have done? They forced Ethan into the car, slammed the door, and roared off into the night. Denise collapsed on the porch, sobbing uncontrollably. "Marcus, do something. Please," she begged. Her tears ran hot, mixing with rain. I knelt beside her, put a steady hand on her shoulder. "Denise, there's nothing I can do now. This is his mess." Her eyes searched mine for hope, but I gave her none. Sometimes the cruelest mercy is honesty. But tell me, would you have lied to comfort her, or let her face the storm alone? Hours passed like years. Denise sat in silence, rocking back and forth, whispering Ethan's name. I poured her tea, but she barely touched it. Around dawn, headlights flashed outside. The car returned. My stomach twisted, not with fear, but with curiosity. What shape would Ethan come back in? Would he crawl? Or not at all? The door swung open, and there he was, bloodied, shirt torn, face swollen. They dumped him on the porch like trash. "Next time," the leader said coldly, "he won't walk away." Then they vanished into the morning fog. Denise cried out, rushing to Ethan's side, cradling his broken body. He whimpered, too weak to speak. I stood over them, arms crossed. The image was almost poetic, Denise finally seeing her golden brother reduced to nothing. And yet, she still held him, still whispered love into his ear. Loyalty is strange. It clings to ashes, even when the fire has burned out. I asked myself, how long would she keep protecting him? How long before she admitted what I already knew? Ethan was nothing but a curse in her life. We carried him inside, laid him on the couch. His eyes fluttered open, red and swollen. "Marcus, help me," he whispered, voice like sandpaper. For a moment, I stared at him. The same man who once struck me in my own house, who mocked me, who demanded my keys. And now he begged. Isn't it something, how the mighty kneel when their world collapses? Denise gripped my arm. "Please, Marcus, we can't let them kill him." Her voice broke. She still saw light in a man covered in shadows. Later, when Ethan slept, Denise turned to me. Her face pale, lips trembling. "What do we do? They'll come again. They'll kill him." Her words hung in the air like smoke. I leaned close, whispering, "Denise, maybe letting go is the only way to save yourself." She gasped, shaking her head violently. "No. He's my brother. I can't abandon him." Tears streaked down her face. I said nothing more, but deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. Because the next storm would be bigger, darker, and far less forgiving. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment. Ethan's begging. Denise's cries. The collector's threats. My chest ached with something heavy. Was it pity? Was it victory? Or was it the quiet satisfaction of seeing fate unfold exactly as I planned? I asked myself a question I dare ask you now. When someone destroys your peace, is revenge ever enough? Or does it leave a hunger, an emptiness, that no pain can fill? I knew the answer was coming soon. I just didn't know how bloody it would be. The following morning, Ethan tried to stand, but his body gave out. Denise rushed to help him, holding him upright. He whispered, "I'll fix it, I promise." But I saw the lie in his eyes. He was broken beyond repair. The collectors wouldn't stop. And Denise, she wouldn't let go. That combination was dangerous. Deadly. I realized then that this wasn't just Ethan's downfall, it was Denise's, too. Unless someone intervened. Unless someone forced her to see the truth. But how far would I need to go to break her loyalty? As I watched them from the kitchen, Denise hugging him tight, I felt the weight of my next decision. Do I step in and cut the rope before she falls with him? Or do I let them both crash together, shattered, in the name of loyalty? The choice was mine, and I had to make it soon. Because the collectors were not done. They would return. And when they did, no amount of tears or prayers would keep them out. Tell me, if you were me, would you save Ethan, or let him burn? Morning sunlight poured through the blinds, but the house felt darker than ever. Ethan lay weak on the couch, every breath heavy, every promise empty. Denise knelt beside him, eyes swollen from crying. I stood in the doorway, torn between rage and silence. For years, I had dreamed of this moment, him broken, helpless. Yet seeing Denise chained to his fall twisted something inside me. Was I punishing him, or her? And here's the question for you. When revenge drags down the innocent, is it still justice, or does it become something far colder? Denise turned to me, her face pale, voice trembling. "Marcus, we can't wait anymore. We have to leave, run, something, before they kill him." Her words were desperate, clinging to hope that didn't exist. Ethan groaned, eyes half shut, muttering, "I can handle it. Just give me time." I almost laughed. Time was the one thing he didn't have. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching them cling to each other like passengers on a sinking ship. Do you think love blinds us from truth, or does it protect us until it's too late? Later that day, Denise tried to make soup. Her hands shook so badly the spoon clattered into the pot. Ethan barely ate, his face bruised, his body weak. "I'll get the money," he whispered, though his eyes screamed defeat. Denise kissed his forehead, whispering back, "I believe you." I stood behind them, fists tightening. Believe him? After all the lies, after all the damage? That blind faith made me angrier than his fists ever did. Tell me, if someone you love kept breaking you, would you still hold on, or finally let go? That night, I made a choice. While Denise slept beside Ethan, I went outside, phone in hand. I dialed a number I hadn't touched in years. A man's voice answered, calm but sharp. "Marcus." Finally calling. My jaw clenched. "It's about Ethan. He owes your people. He can't pay. What if I gave you another way?" Silence hummed through the line. Then the man chuckled darkly. "We're listening." My heart pounded. I wasn't just planning Ethan's fall anymore. I was setting the stage for something far bigger. But what price would I pay? The next morning, Denise found me at the kitchen table, staring into black coffee. "You're quiet," she whispered. I looked up at her, searching her face. She was tired, broken, yet still beautiful in her stubborn loyalty. "Denise," I said slowly, "what if Ethan can't be saved?" Her eyes filled instantly, tears spilling. She shook her head violently. "Don't say that. Don't you dare say that." Her voice cracked like glass. I leaned closer, whispering, "But what if saving him means losing you?" Her lips trembled. She had no answer. "Would you?" That evening, the collectors returned. Their black car gleamed under the streetlight. Denise rushed to the door, blocking them. "Please. He's sick. He can't even stand. Give him more time." The leader smirked, brushing past her. His men dragged Ethan up by the shoulders, ignoring his weak protests. I stood still, watching, letting it happen. Denise screamed at me, her voice raw, "Marcus, do something." But I didn't move. Because I wanted her to see it. To feel the truth burn into her skin, that her brother was no savior, only a sinking weight. They dragged Ethan outside, threw him into the car once again. Denise fought, clawed, begged, but the men shoved her back. The leader looked at me, smirking. Tomorrow. His last chance. After that, it's done. The car roared off, leaving Denise collapsed on the driveway, sobbing so hard her body shook. I walked to her slowly, knelt beside her. "Denise, you saw it. You saw who he really is." She slapped my chest weakly, screaming, "Shut up! He's my brother. He's all I have left." Her words stabbed me deeper than any knife. I carried her inside, laid her gently on the couch. She shook her head, whispering over and over, "He's all I have." My throat tightened. Was that true? Was Ethan truly all she had? Or was I blind to what I meant to her? My chest burned with a new question. Was my revenge worth destroying her heart completely? Or could I bend fate, shape it, make her see without breaking her? Sometimes the line between revenge and love is thinner than a thread. Have you ever crossed that line without meaning to? That night, Denise finally slept, exhausted from her tears. I stood by the window, watching the street, waiting for headlights. I thought about tomorrow. About Ethan's last chance. About what the collectors would do when he failed again. And about Denise, whether she'd still cling to him, or finally let go. My heart raced, because I knew tomorrow wouldn't just decide Ethan's fate. It would decide hers. And maybe mine, too. Because sometimes revenge doesn't end with the enemy's fall. It ends with a choice you can never take back. The night dragged on heavy, like the air before a storm. Denise sat at the table, silent, staring at nothing. Ethan hadn't returned since they dragged him away. Her fingers tapped nervously on the wood, her lips moving in prayer. I watched her, wondering if prayers could save a man already buried in his own lies. My chest felt torn. Half of me wanted Ethan gone forever, half wanted Denise free from him. Can a person be saved if they refuse to change, or is that the moment you must let them go? At dawn, the black car appeared again, tires crunching the gravel. Denise bolted to the door, hope lighting her broken face. 2 men stepped out, dragging Ethan between them. He was worse this time, face swollen, eyes bloodshot, steps weak. They dropped him on the porch like garbage. "Last chance," the leader growled. "Money by tonight, or he disappears." Then they left. Denise screamed after them, "Please, we just need more time." But the car was already gone. I stood still, staring at Ethan's shaking body. Tonight would decide everything. Ethan coughed, spitting blood into his hand. He looked at Denise, whispering, "Don't cry. I'll fix it." The lie was so empty it chilled me. Denise cradled him, kissing his hair, whispering, "We'll find a way." Her blind faith made me ache. How could she still love him after all this? I turned away, fists tight, whispering to myself, "Enough." Sometimes love is not pure. It's poison. And sometimes, watching someone you care about drink that poison is the cruelest pain of all. Would you have ripped the cup from her hands? Later, Ethan begged Denise for money again. "Sell your necklace, Denise. Pawn it, just this once." She froze, her hand instinctively clutching the chain around her neck. It was our mother's necklace, her last memory of family. Denise shook her head, tears spilling. "No, Ethan. Not this. Not her." Ethan's face twisted with rage. "So you'd let them kill me?" His voice cracked, desperate. Denise sobbed harder. I stepped between them, glaring at him. "Enough. She owes you nothing." My voice shook the room. Ethan stared at me, and for the first time, he looked afraid. Denise grabbed my arm, whispering, "Please, Marcus. Don't." Her loyalty chained her even now. Ethan slumped back on the couch, muttering curses under his breath. The air was thick, suffocating. I looked at Denise, then at him. My choice was clear. Tonight, something would break. The collectors would come, and either Ethan would fall, or I would finally step in. But I asked myself, if I saved him, would I lose everything I had worked for? And if I didn't, would Denise ever forgive me? Which loss would hurt more? As the sun set, Ethan grew restless, pacing weakly, muttering plans that made no sense. Denise followed him, begging him to sit. He snapped at her, shouting, "You don't understand. They'll kill me." His voice cracked with fear. Denise burst into tears, screaming, "You're killing me already, Ethan!" The words cut the air like glass. He froze, staring at her. For the first time, she had said what she truly felt. My heart pounded. The rope was fraying. But would it finally snap tonight, or would she tie it back together with her tears? At midnight, headlights pierced the window again. The collectors were back. Denise clutched Ethan's arm, shaking her head. "No, not again." He tried to stand, but collapsed. I moved forward, blocking the door. When the men knocked, my chest tightened. This was it. I opened the door. The leader smirked. "So, where's our money?" Behind me, Ethan whimpered. Denise clung to him, crying. I stepped outside, shutting the door behind me. "What if I have a different offer?" I said. The men exchanged looks, surprised. The game had just changed. But at what cost? The leader tilted his head. "What kind of offer?" His voice was sharp, curious. My throat felt dry, but my words came out steady. "You don't need Ethan. He's worthless. But I can give you something better." The men leaned closer, eyes narrowing. I felt the weight of the moment pressing down. Inside, Denise pounded on the window, shouting my name. She couldn't hear the deal I was making. She couldn't know the price I was about to pay. But isn't it true that sometimes saving someone you love means sacrificing your own soul? The leader smirked, lighting a cigarette. "You've got guts. So what's the offer?" I swallowed hard, staring into his cold eyes. I'll pay his debt. Every dollar. But not tonight. You'll get it in pieces, my way. In return, Ethan lives." The men laughed, shaking their heads. "You'd carry his burden? For what?" "A woman's tears." My silence was my answer. The leader leaned close, whispering, "Fine. But if you fail, it won't be him next time. It'll be you." He flicked his cigarette, ash falling at my feet. Then they left. I stood alone in the dark, my chest heavy, my hands trembling. Inside, Denise rushed to me, eyes full of tears. "Marcus, what did you do? What did you tell them?" I forced a calm smile, whispering, "I bought him time." She hugged me, sobbing into my chest. But as I held her, I knew the truth. I hadn't saved Ethan. I had chained myself to him. And sooner or later, that chain would drag me down too. The storm wasn't over, it was only beginning. And the price was mine to pay. The day came faster than I expected. Ethan's debts were due. Denise sat beside me, pale, silent, trembling. The collectors were coming, and I knew they would not wait. Ethan sat on the couch, bruised and broken, muttering excuses. His eyes pleaded, but I didn't move. I had to see this through. Sometimes, revenge is not about hurting others, it's about revealing the truth. And tonight, the truth would strike harder than any fist. Have you ever watched someone destroy themselves and felt powerless to stop it? The collectors arrived at noon. 3 dark shadows stepped from the car, cold eyes scanning the house. "Time's up," the leader said. Ethan tried to rise, but his body refused. Denise clutched my arm, trembling. "Marcus, please save him," she whispered. I looked at her, pain and resolve mixing in my chest. Could I? Should I? Or would saving him now erase the lesson he needed to learn? I breathed deeply, forcing calm, whispering, "Denise, you will see everything tonight." Her eyes widened. She didn't understand yet. The leader stepped closer to Ethan. "Where's the money?" Ethan's lips quivered. I don't have it. Please, give me more time," he begged. The words were weak, meaningless. The men laughed, and I felt a dark smile rising inside me. The moment of truth had arrived. I stepped forward, standing between them and Ethan. My heart pounded. I spoke slowly. "He won't pay you, but you will get your revenge in another way." The leader tilted his head, curious. "What would they say? What would you do in my place?" I motioned to Ethan, who froze, fear striking him like lightning. "He demanded my car keys. He hit me in my own house. He betrayed me," I said. "And now he must face what he built." Denise gasped, clutching my arm. Ethan's eyes widened. "Marcus, no," he whispered. I took the envelope of money I had prepared for them earlier and threw it on the floor. "Take it. But the real debt. It's the trust he destroyed. That cannot be repaid with cash." I felt their eyes on me, confusion mixing with fear. The leader bent down, picking up the envelope. "You're insane," he said. "Money is money. Debts are debts." I shook my head. "Not this time. He owes more than money. He owes respect. And he owes truth." Denise stared at me, tears falling, finally understanding the plan. Ethan's face turned pale. "Marcus, what are you doing?" I whispered softly, "I am ending this. And I am giving Denise her eyes back." Do you know that feeling when someone finally sees what they refuse to believe? That is power. Ethan tried to stand, tried to argue, but his legs gave way. "No, please," his voice broke. I looked at Denise, whispering, "Watch him now. See who he really is." She held my hand, trembling. Ethan's pride collapsed fully in front of her. The collectors watched, unsure, shifting nervously. And I realized this was the moment of clarity, not just for Ethan, but for Denise and for me. Revenge isn't just about punishment. Sometimes it's about opening eyes that have been blind for too long. Denise finally spoke, voice shaking. I see it now. I see everything. Ethan, you lied. You hurt me. You hurt everyone." Ethan fell to his knees, head bowed. I didn't mean. I tried. But his words were empty. She turned to me, tears streaming, and whispered, "Thank you, Marcus." That moment, that shift in her eyes, felt more powerful than any fight, any plan, any scheme. It was redemption, truth, and justice all in one. Do you think revenge can ever feel like love? The collectors, seeing the change, shifted uneasily. They looked at Ethan, then at me. Finally, the leader spoke, "We'll take the money. But next time, there won't be a next time." I nodded, letting them gather the envelope and leave. The car engines roared, fading into the distance. Silence filled the house. Ethan sat on the floor, broken, speechless. Denise sat beside me, holding my hand. The storm had passed, but the lessons remained. And I realized the final twist. Sometimes the real power isn't in striking back, it's in choosing who lives and who finally sees the truth. I turned to Ethan, cold and calm. "This is your last chance to change," I said. "You have one life left to rebuild, without lies, without betrayal, without me having to fight for it again." His lips quivered. I understand. But I wasn't sure if he truly did. Some people never learn, even when their world collapses around them. Do you think people really change when faced with ruin, or do they just survive it? Denise hugged me tightly. "Marcus, I can breathe again. Thank you for showing me the truth," she whispered. I kissed her forehead. The house was quiet, but heavy with everything that had happened. The battles, the lies, the fear, they were all over. Ethan sat in silence, finally seeing the consequences of his actions. And I knew one thing: the truth, once shown, cannot be hidden again. And sometimes, saving someone isn't about giving them money, it's about giving them vision. Before leaving, I looked at the camera, as if speaking to everyone watching this story unfold. "Sometimes people you love will hurt you the most," I said. "Sometimes revenge isn't about breaking others, it's about letting them see themselves clearly. If you've ever been betrayed, or if someone blinded you with lies, remember, truth always finds a way." And to all of you watching, if this story moved you, share it, like it, and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were Marcus?